Can you guys hear me?
I hear you.
Great. Guys, let's go. Ready?
Yeah, ready.
Let's do it.
Is that Casey?
Yeah, Casey and Hugo are on the call.
Hey guys.
They're the only viewers so far. And we're live streaming on YouTube as well.
We're live streaming now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So don't do anything stupid.
Hi, YouTube.
Hello, world. Alex, ZX.
I'll grab him.
Yeah.
Hey, guys.
I think we actually have usable Wi-Fi here, so hopefully we're good. You want to join us on the sofa?
I'm fine with this.
Oh, come on, you got to be on the call.
I don't want to be there. You go there.
Put me in the middle. We have one viewer. Yeah. We actually do have a couple topics people requested in the agenda here. I don't know who. Oh, is this Tim, I think, right? Yeah. And then Everett suggested a topic. So where's Everett and Paul and those guys?
So the question is, what are all the components of the phase 1 data exchange layer? Where could I find more about this and forthcoming phases?
I'll post a link to them again.
Okay, that relates to sharding.
Phase 1 data exchange layer.
Okay, now that we have two internal channels, it is frustrating because people don't know which one to join.
Jared, you didn't hear about that new phase 1 data exchange layer yet?
No, I've heard about the phase 2 data exchange layer. Wait, what is it?
It's the sharding spec. The draft spec.
Oh, okay.
All right, Everett joined as well. Hey, Everett.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. We have Jose, we have Casey. Is he actually coming? Where is he?
I don't know what he's doing. So are we waiting for anybody, or can we?
I don't know. We did this before. We had like a bunch of people join. So far, there's no one.
Okay.
Hey, are you joining the call? Well, I guess we just have a team meeting, a public team meeting then.
Public team meeting sounds fine to me.
I mean, again, just keep in mind this is recorded, live stream, broadcast, all the above. So be on your best behavior.
I don't know what you're talking about, Lane. Our best behavior is usually pretty darn good, right?
Yeah, why don't we just do team meeting stand-up stuff unless and until anyone else joins. We do have one viewer, so that could be some random community member. I don't know.
Hi, one viewer.
Are the viewers able to comment or anything?
Yeah, they should be able to. And then, I mean, I posted the link to join the video call as well in the public ewasm channel. So
we need some way to force the viewers to prove that they're not robots.
Let me tweet.
Maybe if they were to recite the private key to accounts with a large amount of ether, that would prove that they weren't robots.
No, it wouldn't.
Oh yeah, good point. I guess that's a bad idea.
Well, it doesn't matter if we have people or not.
let's just start.
I have a Travis question if people want to answer that.
You have a Travis question?
Yeah, okay, how about I just do my update and then I tell you guys what my Travis question is. Okay, I'm gonna do that. So yeah, today I'm just gonna work more on making a validator for the test set repo with the goal of having it actually run with the test set CI and do a bunch of essentially sanitation checks on the test set. And then we can make that kind of tighter and tighter over time to standardize more what the test set should look like. I was gonna make, oh, go ahead.
No, sorry, please finish.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
We were discussing making a converter between the different test set formats. The problem is that doing such a conversion will, it will force this little script to suddenly import a bunch of crypto because it has to know how to, for example, take the private key and generate the S, R, and V values in a transaction, stuff like that, like little things like that, which just make the script look more and more heavyweight and more like a full implementation. And I don't want it to go that direction. I want it to just be like really simple sanity checks on the JSON files. So I think a better approach to the converter would be to let test ETH do the conversion and just build something. So add an extra info block to for example, we'll convert the VM test to the blockchain test, and we'll convert the general state test to the blockchain test. We'll add an extra info block to the converted fillers that is similar to how the filled tests have an info block referring to the source hash of the thing that filled them. And then the idea here would be that we would be able to make sure that we refill the converted versions correctly when needed. Does that make sense?
So you're adding the source hash of
so in the well, test ETH would have to add in the source hash information, and then this little script would just check it, similar to how right now it checks the filled test's source hash against the original file and make sure that it's been filled correctly. So before this, there wasn't anything on the CI server enforcing that the tests were filled correctly, for instance. And now I'm trying to make this script enforce a bunch of that stuff. And one more thing I would like to enforce is that if we have VM tests that are translated to blockchain tests, that translation has happened for any new VM tests that are added, for instance. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Are you doing any JSON schema stuff, Everett?
Yeah, so I filled in more of the JSON schemas for the blockchain tests and then added JSON schemas for the VM tests, both fillers and the filled versions. And the Python script now runs those. It's a lot faster than the original Travis thing, because the original Travis thing was, for instance, spinning up a new Python process every single test, and that was just to check that it was valid JSON. And then later it was running the validator JavaScript thing. So I just took all of that and have subsumed it into this one Python script, which does all the original validation that was happening, plus some more, basically. But I don't want to build any information about how to be an Ethereum client into this testing script. I just want it to do very simple checks on the JSON. So that's why I don't want to I was thinking, oh, making the converter from VM test to blockchain test, that'll be easy. I'll just shuffle around the JSON data, but it's not the case. You have to know some information about, how transactions are signed and how to form blocks and stuff like that to be able to do that conversion. I think it's better to just enforce that the conversion was done with this script, but let something external do the actual conversion. Does that make sense? Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. There's just so many layers of abstraction to follow. It might help if you had like a PowerPoint too.
Well, I mean, what it boils down to is I just want the test set to be well formed, basically. And right now there's some checks, but there's not a whole lot. And so I would like to put more checks in, but I don't want to put any checks that require actually building an Ethereum client in. Does that make sense? Because I don't want to build an Ethereum client. I just want to build something that just like reads JSON and tells me like, yeah, this is valid, and I check the source hash and it's correct or something like that. Not like, you know, I built a correct transaction. Anyway, that's it. I'll get off of my soapbox unless anyone else has more questions.
Everett, another thought that's been nagging me is about the VM test format. I mean, because those were all the VM tests were converted into state tests, and then the state tests are all also available in the format of blockchain tests, right?
Sorry, say one more time. I was distracted by a GIF that showed up on on the Telegram. Say one more time. Sorry.
Okay. All of the VM tests are available. They've been converted into state test format as well, right?
Right. Yeah. So that is true. But the thing is, what prompted all this is that I wrote another VM test for the X00 case, and it seems that it belongs as a VM test to me. And then there were comments about like, okay, not all the clients execute the VM tests and stuff like that. And my initial thought was, okay, the client should execute the VM test, but it seems like a much larger engineering effort than just doing the conversion for people. So I started doing the conversion from the VM test to the general state test, but then I realized there wasn't much in the way of validating that these things had been done on the test suite. So for instance, there isn't something that checks, have all the VM tests been converted to general state tests, or have all the VM tests been converted to blockchain tests on pull requests into the test repo. And it seems to me that if we want to make sure that when we add a test to the VM test, that it will be run by all the clients, even clients who don't run the VM tests, we need to enforce those checks on the test repo. So.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Now I'm with you.
Okay, so go ahead.
Build each VM test every time you add a PR. Every time a PR goes through CI.
I'm sorry, you're cutting out. What did you say?
So maybe just okay. So basically, if I understand you correctly, you're saying that every time a PR comes in, you want to refill all of the tests to validate. I mean, to validate that they were. To validate that they were filled with PR.
Yeah, exactly. So all this script does is the validation that all the refilling that should happen is done, right? It does not do the refilling.
Time on that look like on Travis?
Say again?
How long does that take on Travis?
It's pretty quick to validate, actually. So the new way of doing it is quicker than the old way of doing it. The old way of doing it was doing two things. First, it was finding all the JSON files and just parsing it with the Python JSON parser just to make sure it was valid JSON. Okay, and then it was applying the few schemas that were written in JSON schema. I think those were written by you, Jared, right?
Casey.
By Casey. And then the new way of doing it is there's one single Python script that can do formatting, so it just reads in the JSON and writes it back out to the same file. So that sorts keys, it does indentation stuff, all that sort of things. It can do validation, so it reads in the JSON and compares it to the JSON schema, and make sure that all the keys that are supposed to be present are present, for instance. And then it can also do checking that things were filled correctly. So it will check, it will look at a filled file, look at the source hash, go to the source file, hash it, check that the hashes match, right? And then this just enforces basic sanity checks over the test sets. And then it's also a lot quicker than the original one, because the original one was doing this find command and spinning up a new Python process for every file. And then here it's just one Python process that just iterates through the list of files. So It's a little bit quicker, but it's not doing anything complicated. It's just doing basic sanity checks. So I've completely subsumed all the previous sanity checks and I've added a couple more. Does it make sense?
Yeah, so if I can, I'll try to zoom out a little bit because we have these 3 different formats: VM tests, state tests, and blockchain tests.
Yeah.
Blockchain test is the most general.
Right.
So as test maintainers doing the filling, we will continue to have 3 different formats. But the intention with filling the VM tests into state tests and then also filling the state tests as blockchain tests is so that anybody who's maintaining a client, they don't have to worry about all these 3 different formats. Right. They only have to worry about the blockchain test format. And then that's the supreme format, and that's the only one they have to deal with. Yeah. And if they only want to run the VM test, then they just run that subset of the blockchain tests.
Well, so that's the thing, is that subset. The problem with that is the blockchain tests contain a lot of stuff in different formats that is not relevant at all to actually running, a VM test, right? So for instance, all of the formal tools I've seen started with just the VM test, and they only supported that format because they didn't want to have to do any of the other stuff that the blockchain test, says you have to do. So instead, they just start with the VM test. They just check, like, can I push 2 on the stack? Can I add? Can I do it symbolically? Can I do X? Just like really simple things. So I think it's important that we do have an incremental test suite, but I also think it's important that coverage that we get at the lower levels, like the VM test, is included in the higher level test suite so that we make sure that the clients who then eventually deprecate their support for the VM tests, don't do it. But I also don't want to encourage like an idea of saying like, okay, the VM tests contain everything, so we can just deprecate the other ones, because that's just not how software is developed. Software is developed incrementally, so we should have incremental targets for people to reach, in terms of being able to support having an Ethereum client. So that's
the other option that I was envisioning is if you are writing an initial prototype and you only want to run the VM tests, then you would read the information from the blockchain test format. So you wouldn't do everything that the blockchain test format expects you to do. You'd only read, that subset, like you'd read the contract code, and then I don't know if there would be another like expect VM section or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
that way you're not like, whatever.
I'm not convinced because in the VM test, for example, you always present the code as like a series. The blockchain test, you present it as a series of blocks with transactions. So already we have to like know how to deal with, what order do we execute the transactions in? How do we do this? Whereas the VM test, they just literally dump a chunk of code, right? And then check the post state, or check some chunks of the post state. You see what I mean? Like I would argue even for less in the VM test. I would argue that anything dealing with accounts doesn't belong in the VM test. And so we should get rid of this dependency on using sStore as a way of checking the post state, for instance. Instead, we should just have a check, like check that the stack is exactly this, check that the local memory is exactly this. And that would be more consistent with kind of the vision that the VM tests are just core VM operations, like adds and arithmetic and, things like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So
we should, create an issue to remove all the VM tests that do sStores. Or
then it'll remove all of them, right? No.
Good. But maybe that wouldn't be so bad.
No, I'm willing to assist with the conversion of them to a different format.
Yeah, maybe a new format where instead of doing to sStores, it's like just check the stack or something.
Yeah, and I think there you're actually checking more than what the sStores would be checking, because you could have left some stuff on the stack from earlier. Similar to how the fuzzer checks more by looking at intermediate states. If you actually just make assertions about the entire stack, then you're also asserting things about some bits of the intermediate state.
just take
well.
of the standard trace format?
Say again?
Why don't you just take all the steps and hash them and say,
Because not like KVM, for example, can't do hashing. Like we just don't. We have like a very limited bit of hashing, and that's what I mean. I don't want people to have to implement all the stuff that a client normally has to worry about just to be able to run the test sets. You see what I mean? Like,
what I'm suggesting is you just have you'd have a client. You say you run a VM test. It would emit a series of steps, which each of these steps contain, whatever the stack. Maybe a hash of the memory, and then you take a set of those steps and you hash them. That could be
like I said, I don't want people to have to implement higher level client functionality just to run the VM tests. I don't want people to have to implement like, this is the encoding we choose for the stack. This is the encoding we choose for the local memory.
All they have to implement is being able to have tracing, and then they have to just be able to take a hash of that list. It doesn't.
You're bringing in crypto. There shouldn't be any crypto needed to run the VM test, is the way I see it. Like you should be able to just inspect exactly what the output is.
Okay.
Crypto's a huge dependency. It's a massive barrier. It took a long time for us to get crypto support just in general, just because we tried to move from the VM test to, the more general blockchain test. That took a month, essentially.
Everett, when you use the term crypto, are you referring to cryptocurrency or cryptography?
Cryptography, like just in general, hash functions, these elliptic curve stuff, all these things, they're huge dependencies that a lot of people don't have in their project. And for running the core VM, there's no need for it. Right?
There's an instruction that confused. There's the SHA-3 instruction.
What?
Never mind.
Okay. Anyway, that's my update. I'm gonna what I'm gonna write now is the thing that, well, now I have to refill all the tests because I reformatted all the test fillers, and now all the source hashes don't match, and so I have to start a job refilling all the tests. And I'm sure that I'll find some tests that have bugs in them, I guess, probably. So that'll be exciting, but we'll see. Okay. I guess we should move on, though. I've taken a lot of time.
Who else has updates?
I mean, is this turning into a stand-up?
I think so. We're just doing a public attendance.
Yeah, I think so. Why not?
Yeah, cool. I can go. Let's see. I have no real updates since yesterday.
Well, for the purposes, because that was not public, right? Because no one's heard from us in 3 weeks. So just, what have you been doing for the past 3 weeks, basically?
Yeah. So essentially, from the side of EVM to ewasm, which has been more of my focus, what I'm working on doing is implementing EVM to ewasm. So I guess high-level overview, EVM to ewasm takes EVM bytecode and then translates it into ewasm. And the idea is that it is a backwards compatibility tool for existing EVM contracts,
but also
in the world of ewasm.
Also useful for tests.
Yeah, and so the idea with this project is that we can take advantage of the test coverage that the EVM1 state tests give us using EVM to ewasm. So we have it in JavaScript. It's passing quite a few tests. And now I'm working on bringing the eventual goal is to implement it in C++. Well, we have a C++ implementation, but the goal is to take that implementation, compile it to ewasm, and have it be essentially like a system contract that people can use to do the transpilation. But yeah, so the C++ implementation is coming along. It's passing more tests. I'm trying to get it up to the state that the JavaScript implementation is in. And I think we're making good progress, and we will continue to do so. that's my update.
Let me just add on to that. I'll just do mine because I'm doing basically the same work. So Jared's recently been focused on the C++ version of EVM to ewasm. I'm still working on the kind of existing JavaScript version, along with Hugo, working on getting as many tests to pass as possible. I'm very, very, very deep in call-related tests right now, and I've definitely isolated a couple of issues in mostly Hera, probably, which is the layer, Hera and EVMC, which is the layer that sits in between CPP Ethereum client and the sort of ewasm stuff. That's it for me.
And just to add on another point to explain why some of us are working on the JavaScript client at EVM to ewasm, some of us are working on CPP. So essentially, the EVM to ewasm just takes EVM bytecode and has corresponding WebAssembly and just pieces that together. So a lot of the changes between the two implementations can be applied across each other. So we're able to synergize our work, even though some of us are working on the JavaScript implementation. I'm working on C++ implementation. If Lane makes some changes that fix things in JavaScript, I can incorporate them very easily into what I'm working on. So it's very easy to synergize.
The idea is that when I submit a PR to sort of fix an issue in JavaScript, Jared or Alex or someone else would include in that same PR a change to bring the CPP version up to spec.
You should submit the changes to C++. This is only reserved for casing.
Sorry?
This option is only reserved for casing. So
I'm supposed to update the CPP version as well? That's fine.
Yeah, you're hacking CPP Ethereum at this point. You should be familiar with the
No, that's fine. But it's all just one more thing, right? They do share a lot of infrastructure, so all the very low-level stuff that's written in WASP and WebAssembly sort of text format, like that's the same. And so actually a lot of the changes we're making are in that, and that applies equally to both CPP and JavaScript versions.
But hopefully the JavaScript is going to be phased out. There's no point having to. Yeah,
that's the plan, sort of when that's ready, passing tests and stuff. Just to add a tiny bit more to kind of what I've been working on, also like the tooling around Testif, our favorite thing in the world, is like not spectacular. And so like I've been working on cleaning up the traces that are being printed by EVM to ewasm and by Hera, making them look the same as the ones coming from CPP Ethereum, increasing verbosity, increasing debug output, just making it easier to kind of isolate issues between the, why tests are not passing. Maybe Hugo, do you want to jump in because you've been working on similar stuff as well? Do you want to do your update? Hugo?
Yes. Well, in my case, the update will be just similar as you, Lane, because in my case, I've been working also on getting more test passing, and actually, I've been focusing also in the call codes. So yeah, I think that will be it. I will continue working on checking why some of the tests are not passing and trying to figure out how to fix it.
Cool. Yeah, most of them are passing, but I definitely found at least 2 issues last night. I believe they're both Hera issues with the call code. I think that when we get the call test to pass, I think a lot of other tests will start passing as well. A lot of the other tests use calls, obviously, call and create.
Have we started narrowing down which test failures are due to bugs in Hera and which test failures are due to EVM to ewasm needing Byzantium updates?
Sort of. I filed issues for the things I found, and it's reasonably clear which is which.
Yeah, and I guess zooming out again, from my side, when the sprint initially started, there was sort of like one option was to try to hammer out a clean EEI spec, and then once the spec was settled, then move forward with EVM to ewasm. And I argued for the opposite approach, which was to make progress on EVM to ewasm with the current sort of the classic version of the EEI, which does a lot of the gas logic, inside the in the EEI methods. And the alterations to the spec, to the EEI spec, we want to simplify the EEI spec and make the gas logic in the EEI really as clean as possible, and then put the ugly EVM gas logic inside EVM to ewasm. And so that would be phase 2 after phase 1, which is sort of getting most state tests passing against ewasm classic. So first, like, finish ewasm classic, then move on to ewasm.
Ewasm cache.
But does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think the original goal of the sprint was more to work on both in parallel, right?
Right. So maybe we could give some updates on that, on how clean, how simplified will we be able to make the EEI, and will there be any remaining warts that we'll just have to deal with?
No, I don't have updates from yesterday on it, but you can check the PR that's open about it, I guess, and provide feedback. That's about what you can do, yeah.
Okay.
I guess I worked on everything which was mentioned so far.
Alex is hiding.
Yeah, I don't need to be shown. I mostly worked on the C++ conversion of EVM to ewasm and fixed the hero bugs. Wrote a test generation tool which can generate random WAS code which calls a random combination of EI methods. Also helped Everett to figure out and untangle the mess of test-eve. I guess that's it. I mean, pretty much everything was mentioned so far.
Okay.
I do have a question about the Travis that I hope someone can answer quickly. How can we make a test? Maybe. How can we make a test that is based on git diff? Should it be on a new line or on the same line with ampersand ampersand, or?
Can you repeat can you clarify what your question is?
Okay, so I want a test in the test repo that goes through and formats all of the all of the files, and if any of them change, I want it to fail that test.
Yeah. Okay. So how you can do that? So you're trying to make sure that when the user submits a PR or when the developer submits a PR, they're applying the formatting before the PR passes CI.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So what you can do is you can use git. So in Travis, you would apply the formatting, and then you go git diff. The flag is exit code. And that will fail if the git diff shows anything. So if you're getting formatting.
Well, so I can do git diff -- quiet and that will do the exit code thing. But yeah, I mean, I think it's the same thing. But the main question I have is, do you do it on the same line as the formatting thing? Should I do like Python format all files ampersand ampersand git diff blah, or should it be on a new line with a new -sign like YAML list item? You see what I mean?
I don't know.
Okay, maybe we can share up.
Maybe there's a way to do it using a GUI.
Perhaps, I don't know. I mean, I doubt it. I guess I don't know. Was there? What would you mean?
I was just a bad joke. Sorry.
Oh.
You could hire somebody full time to manually run, instead of having Travis, we could just have somebody run the CI line by line every time a PR is submitted?
Well, I think that's what was happening essentially is like Dimitri's trying to enforce that the tests are filled correctly on every PR, and he probably just does that locally and is like, okay, it's good enough, I'll merge, but we should definitely enforce as much as possible on the actual CI. I mean, because otherwise, what's the point?
So were there any other agenda items for the public call, or?
So TC Sula asked, what are all of the components of the phase 1 data? Wait, did we talk about that? Of the phase 1 data exchange layer?
Yeah, it's a sharding question, and you can find links on the ETH research forum.
Okay, I just wrote my first C Fibonacci WASM Hello World this week. What resources can you point me to that are some good demos to learn from for ewasm?
There's the testnet demo.
There's the Rust example contracts we have. I think Alex said he was working on an assembly script example contract. Alex, have you pushed that yet?
No, but we should do all of those examples before the end of the sprint.
Yep. So they'll be coming soon.
I can do one of ready to put in. Look at it. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think generally we could put some work into sort of documenting stuff and pointing people at resources. Another question from the same person was, can you please post links to open issues that the ewasm team would love to get help with? Do we have issues that we would love to get help with? I mean, writing sample contracts, that's one.
Fixing all the state tests in EVM2 WASM.
Is that, I mean, we can use help with that, but I feel like there's a lot of sort of ramp up work that would be needed for someone to dive into that stuff, which of course they're more than welcome to do.
That is what we need help with, though.
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe if we could get a document describing how to set that up. I know Hugo put together some stuff already, so
Hugo stuff is great.
I can work on augmenting the document that Hugo wrote to kind of describe how to get up to snuff with what we're currently working on. And I feel like that could be a good starting point to dive into fixing state tests.
So cool. We'll work on that. We'll post links to that in Gitter and in the PM repository. Everett, you posted this thing. How are tests being managed? What's the testing strategy structure? What tests are there? How do we run them? Do you want to add anything to that, or did you already cover that?
I mean, I've covered what I know about that, which is just that I'm adding these validators to the test set. But I guess people might have, and there's no one here at the meeting, but maybe people might have wanted to know what our testing plan is. And basically, I think the plan boils down to like try to use similar testing infrastructure as the rest of the Ethereum community.
Oh, maybe Alex can describe the new ewasm random test generator thing that he just pushed last night.
Describe to who right now?
Sorry, what did you say?
Describe when or who?
No, what is it? What does it do? What's the purpose of it? How does it work?
Should I keep going now?
What'd you say?
It might also be early because, I mean, should probably be more extensively tested.
The audio is not great, so I'm not sure what pieces I'm missing.
Alex, you want to talk about it now, or do you want to wait?
No, I'm just asking. When do you want to talk about this? Right now?
No, we can do it later.
Yeah, I would argue for like using it a bunch and then deciding that it's ready.
Have you tried using it?
No. I'm the only one on the video. I don't want to be alone. I'm gonna end this call unless anyone feels otherwise strongly, and we can get a conversation. Stand up. Does anyone have anything else they want to add? We don't have any other questions. I just checked. We don't have any other.
I could real quickly summarize. So Casey asked earlier what the progress on the spec is, and I was thinking in stand-up mode, but I could summarize just for the public call. We have this pull request open for the EEI specification. I'm trying to write it just directly in K so that it compiles and type checks and everything, so we know that the specification makes sense. I'm also trying to write it by extracting it from KVM so that we can make KVM also use this EEI directly. And then we know it's correct with respect to all the KVM tests. And then if we can use the same EEI with ewasm, then we'll know we have good compatibility at call boundaries between KVM and ewasm. But the what's remaining to be done is the call stuff, call and create specifically. Everything else is transferred over. But the what I was waiting for was more of the call stuff to be ironed out in the implementation, so I could kind of see what they are doing in terms of the signature that the EEI exposes. And then another comment about the complicated gas calculations is right now, I'm assuming that all gas deduction goes through the use gas function. So actually, you know, none of the complicated gas calculations are inherently transferred over from KVM to the KEEI because it just doesn't do any gas calculation. So it assumes before you do the call, you call, you know, use gas, the correct amount for the call, which means that, you know, we could adopt the same gas model in ewasm, or we could pick a different one, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. So, or we could have somewhere in between, I don't know. So I guess it's agnostic, at least currently it's agnostic about, you know, what gas model you pick.
Agnostic sounds good. Thanks, Everett.
Okay, I think that's all. No. Are we done?
Have you tried this code generation tool?
No.
Who wants to try it? Well, okay, actually, it is only generating a WASP file. And we need another tool which generates a state test out of it.
Where did Lane go?
I'm right here.
Oh, so are we
Testy the tool that does that?
done with the call now, or?
We're still broadcasting. I can stop the broadcast if you guys want me to.
I think we're through all the agenda items, right?
I'll kill the broadcast. We can stay connected.